So we had 30 VFX shots in this movie. I had planned for about 10, so 3 times as many. Sounds about right. That's usually how it goes. It was even fun working on the visual effects, even though that was just me here. Just click, click, click for so much more time than I thought it was gonna be. We had a bunch of what are called invisible VFX, where we tried really hard to make sure that the clock in the bedroom was lined up, and it wasn't always. So I had to go in and paint out the clock and, you know, put a different clock face on, which on the one hand is not a very difficult visual effect, but on the other hand is. Because I had characters walking in front of it, and we were moving the camera around, and it's a flat plane, and you have to track it on properly, and we were changing, there's a lot. So that was, you know, 8 or 10 shots that I didn't even plan on doing, and each one of them took several hours. We had a couple other little invisible effects where I had to paint out, you know, we had a boom mic barely pop into the shot or something. That's normal, that happens on every movie. And then obviously we had our big effects. We had 2 different glow versions for Jono's eyes. We did a semi-practical effect on one, but I always knew I was gonna like enhance it. So go ahead and slip that on, and then it's actually kind of a pince-nez kind of thing.
I don't know what that means.
It's those glasses with no earpieces.
Oh, okay.
And then the other one, that's just the soft glow when he's just being creepy Jono.
Just come look. Once you see, you'll understand.
I knew we were gonna do that completely digitally. What I didn't realize until I had done about 8 different iterations was it was going to be very simple. You know, I tried a bunch of different things, and the one that was the scariest was just kind of a very mild glow. And it's just not a lot. It was enough to make the eye makeup not look silly anymore, because without it, it looks silly. The shots of the moon-infected people outside, we had eye lights on everybody. So I had to clean up all of the like paraphernalia, the wires hanging down and everything. So I had to do all of that. I knew that would take a while. What I didn't know would take a long time was the rendering, because each eye, and there were 6 of them, added about 5 minutes of render time to each shot. So I had this relatively simple shot of people just standing, looking at a camera going, ah, with some glows, and it would take an hour and a half to render. So I'm working on the biggest visual effect shot in the entire film right now. It is the shot where Jono kicks the door open and his eyes flare out. He like takes the big breath and then his eyes open and they flare out, and it's this big, big thing. Interestingly, the stuff that you would think would be the most complicated is putting the big lens flares and the lights coming out of his eyes. That's actually the easiest part of the shot. What's difficult is we actually shot this, we did 2 takes to make this one shot. So there's one that's called a clean plate, and then one, well, I'm calling it a clean plate and an effects plate. But there's one where he's not wearing anything. So in the shot, he wears this contraption that goes on his eyes to make the lights.
Put it on the bridge of my crooked Owen Wilson nose.
There you go.
Wow.
And we did a take where he's not wearing that, because the beginning of the shot, his eyes aren't lit up, so there won't be light throwing onto the door and the wall and everything that's in the scene. And it's not going to be flaring the lens. But as soon as he opens his eyes, it has to flare out and hit the lens and, you know, make a big thing. And the problem is, when we shot those, they're not in exactly the same position, and the door is not in the same position, so I have to take the door from the dark shot and put it onto the light shot, warp it and stretch it so that it looks the same, so that when we transition from the dark one to the light one, when his eyes light up, there's not like weird door movement. It's just a thing. The same thing with Shona, because her shoulder and her face are not lit up by Jono's light, and then they are, and so I have to take her shoulder and her head from one shot and move them onto the other shot and morph them around and kind of stick them on, and then transition between the two. I have to do some stuff with Jono. I actually have to move one of his arms over. His head is at a slightly different angle, so I'm doing a morph on his head to move it over. So that's actually the difficult part of this shot. The easy part is making his eyes light up, because that's just throwing a glow on his eyes. And I have a plugin that does that. I was able to start working on the visual effects really quickly after we finished shooting, and I was the last person done with anything until we got to color. It was a thing I expected to take 6 weeks, and it took more like 16 weeks. It went a long time. And granted, I was fitting it in around, you know, making cinema therapy and having a family and all of the other things that, you know, you have in a life. But I grossly underestimated the amount of time it would take me to do these shots. I really enjoy working on visual effects. I did it professionally for a year and a half. This was the most I've done since then. And it was really good to get back in and dive in and be an artist for a minute instead of, you know, I mean, I guess directing is an art, but like, I really got to feel like, you know, I've got my pen tablet and I'm like drawing things and I'm making stuff. And I enjoy that part of the filmmaking process. I'm pulling magic tricks. Like that's all visual effects is just fooling people with not real things to make them seem like they're real. And it's just, it's fun. It took longer than it should have. But we got it done hours before the color grade.